Whether you are hearing this story for the first time or returning to it again, the book of Genesis invites you to rest in this truth. God spoke light into darkness, breathed life into dust, and has never stopped reaching toward humanity with unwavering love. These words remind us that the Lamb has overcome, that God still reigns upon his throne, and that nothing in heaven or on earth can stand against his purposes. As you listen, let your heart rest in the promise that Christ is sovereign and his word is sure. Subscribe to the channel as an act of faith so that each night you may rest in God's word and feel his gentle protection. The book of Genesis is Scripture's first breath, a sacred beginning that holds the weight of all beginnings. Before nations were formed, before any temple was built, before a single psalm was sung, God was already at work, shaping a world out of nothing and calling it good. Genesis opens not with human effort or achievement, but with the voice of God moving over the deep, bringing order to chaos, turning emptiness into abundance, and placing humanity at the center of his loving design. This is the book where we meet the first light, the first garden, the first promise, and also the first heartbreak. Here we witness creation's beauty and the ache of its fracture, but even more, we see God's relentless pursuit of relationship with those he made in his own image. What makes Genesis so profound is not just its account of how things began, but how it reveals the character of the one who began them. No hurried chaos, no distant deity, only a creator who shapes with intention, speaks with tenderness, and responds to human brokenness, not with abandonment, but with covenant. Through 6 sweeping movements, Genesis unfolds the foundations of everything we know about God's heart creation, and rest, fall, and grace, judgment, and mercy, promise, and patience, wrestling, and blessing, betrayal, and reconciliation. As we enter this ancient and sacred story, we will walk with Adam and Eve in their innocence and their shame, stand with Noah as the rains fall journey with Abraham into the unknown, wrestle with Jacob in the night, and weep with Joseph as forgiveness breaks through years of pain. This is not merely a book of beginnings, it is the beginning of God's unending story of redemption, a story that continues even now, reaching forward to include you. Before we begin the reading, you are invited to share the time and place where you are listening. And if there is something weighing heavy on your heart, feel free to write a simple prayer in the comments below. God sees, he hears, and he understands every word you speak. Thank you for being here. May God's word bring you peace, comfort, and restful sleep as you listen. Come, my dear one, come close now. Let us walk together, slowly back to the very first breath of all things, back to the moment before moments existed, back to when there was only God and the deep and the gentle hovering of his spirit over waters that had not yet learned to be still. You may be weary tonight. Your heart may feel like that ancient, deep, formless dark, too heavy to name. And if that is where you are beloved, then you are exactly where this story begins. Because this is where God loves to meet us. In the depths, in the darkness, in the place where we cannot see our own way forward. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. Listen to that beautiful word, hovering. The Spirit of God was not far away, watching from a distance. He was not absent, leaving the darkness to fend for itself. He had not turned his back in disappointment or frustration. No, beloved, he was hovering, moving gently, tenderly, like a mother bird, spreading her wings over her nest to keep her little ones warm and safe. Like a father's hand, resting softly on the head of a child who has finally fallen asleep after a long and difficult day. The Spirit of God was there, present in the darkness, moving with such gentleness over the formless deep, and he was not afraid. He has never been afraid of our chaos, our emptiness, our void. He moves toward it with love. Before anything had shape, before any voice had been heard, before light or land or life, God was already there, fully present, fully attentive, and he was not anxious about what he saw. He did not panic at the emptiness stretching before him. He did not recoil from the darkness. Instead, in the quietness of eternity, he simply opened his mouth and spoke. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Oh, beloved, can you hear the tenderness in that moment? God did not shout into the darkness. He did not wrestle it into submission or force it to obey. He did not need to raise his voice or clench his fist. He simply spoke the way a father whispers to a frightened child in the middle of the night, "I am here, you are safe, let there be light." And with one word, one breath, from the mouth of the Almighty Light was born, not because the darkness was so powerful it needed to be defeated, but because light had always been waiting, resting in the heart of God, ready to be poured out as a gift the moment he chose to give it. This was not just the flipping of a cosmic switch, dear one. This was not merely the appearance of the sun in an empty sky. No, this light was so much more. It was the first whisper of order, gently entering chaos. It was the first tender breath of peace, settling softly into panic. It was hope, quiet, steady, unshakable hope, breaking through a night that thought it would last forever. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day, evening and morning. Do you see the grace woven into this rhythm, beloved? Even on the very first day of all creation, God did not make a world of endless striving. He did not design life to be one long race without rest. From the beginning, he gave us evening, the fading of light, the invitation to cease our work, the permission to lay our burdens down, and then morning, the gentle return of light, the promise that what ended yesterday will begin again, fresh and new. God made a world that breathes, a world that works and rests, a world that knows the goodness of light and also the sacredness of the quiet darkness that invites us into sleep. Take a slow breath now, my dear one. Let your lungs fill gently, slowly, as if you are breathing in that first morning air. Hold it for just a moment, and now release it softly, the way evening releases the day. Feel the rise and fall of your own chest, the way your body knows how to breathe without you commanding it, without you straining or pushing. This rhythm, this sacred in and out, is the rhythm God himself planted into the fabric of creation. This is the rhythm he is tenderly inviting you back into tonight. You do not have to solve everything before you close your eyes. You do not have to fix what feels shattered or make sense of what feels confusing. You do not have to be stronger, wiser, or better than you are right now in this very moment. God did not rush on the first day. He will not rush you now. He is not standing over you with impatience, tapping his foot, waiting for you to hurry up and become who he wants you to be. No, beloved, he is simply here, hovering over you the way his spirit hovered over the waters, present, attentive, full of tenderness, and he is ready, so ready to speak light into whatever corner of your heart still feels dark and formless tonight. Here is the gentle truth I want you to carry with you as you rest. God is not afraid of your chaos. He never has been. He has always known exactly how to meet disorder with gentleness, how to speak peace into the loudest panic, how to bring order without force, and how to shine light into every shadowed place in your soul that feels too broken to heal. And he does not need you to be put back together first. He does not require you to clean yourself up or figure everything out before he draws near. That is not how he works. He came close to the formless deep at the beginning of time, and he comes close to you now, just as you are, with all your questions, all your weariness, all your unnamed aches. You are not too much for him. You are not too messy, too broken, too far gone. You are exactly the kind of heart he knows how to hold. So if your thoughts are spinning tonight, if your mind will not settle, if your heart feels stretched between too full and too empty all at once, if you cannot even find the words to form a prayer, then simply let yourself breathe. Let yourself be. Let the Spirit of God hover over you the way he hovered over the waters at the very beginning. You do not need to perform. You do not need to produce. You simply need to receive. God is here, beloved, right here, and he is speaking light over you. Not someday when you are stronger, not later when you have it all figured out, but now, tonight, in this moment, over your weariness, over your worry, over every part of you that feels like it is too much or not enough. Let there be light, he whispers, and in the soft, steady warmth of his presence, in the gentle unfolding of his relentless love, there is light. There always has been, there always will be, and it is good. After the light, God continued to speak, and with each word, the world grew a little fuller, a little more beautiful. He separated the waters above from the waters below, stretching the sky wide and blue like a canopy of grace. He gathered the seas into their places and called the dry ground to rise up mountains, lifting their heads toward heaven valleys, dipping low to catch the rain plains, spreading wide and green under the endless sky. And then seeds. Oh, the wonder of seeds, beloved, tiny, hidden, buried in dark soil where no eye could see them. But God saw, and he spoke life into them, and they pushed through the earth, unfolding into grasses and plants and trees that would one day bear fruit. Life emerging from what looked like death, beauty rising from what seemed like nothing. Then came the lights in the heavens, the sun golden and faithful marking the day, the moon quiet and gentle keeping watch through the night, and the stars, oh the stars, scattered like a million whispered promises across the darkness, reminding us that even in the deepest night, we are not alone. Light is always there, even when we cannot see it clearly. God filled the waters with fish that shimmer and swim. He filled the skies with birds that soar and sing. Every living creature he spoke into being carried within it a whisper of his goodness, a reflection of his creativity, a small piece of his enormous heart made visible for us to see and touch and in wonder at. And after each act of creation, God paused. He looked at what he had made, and he said, "It is good." Can you hear the pleasure in his voice, beloved? The sheer delight. God was not checking off a list. He was not building a machine. He was creating with joy, with love, with the kind of satisfaction an artist feels when the painting finally captures what has been living in their heart all along. And then, on the sixth day, something shifted. The pace slowed even more. God did not simply speak into the dust this time. He knelt close, he formed, he shaped, he breathed. Then God said, "Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground." So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. In his image, in his likeness. Do you know what that means, dear one? Do you feel the weight and wonder of it? You were not an accident. You were not thrown together from leftover scraps of a busy week. You were not formed in haste or crafted without thought. No, you were made with intention, with care, with the kind of attention that only love can give. God looked at everything he had made, the stars, the seas, the soaring eagles, the towering mountains. And then he looked at you, and he said, "Let us make them like us, bearing our image, carrying our likeness, reflecting our heart." Your worth, beloved, does not come from what you do. It does not rise and fall with your productivity, your success, your ability to keep up or measure up or be enough. You bear the image of the Creator simply because He chose to place it within you. Before you ever accomplished a single thing, you were already valuable. Before you earned a degree, held a job, built a family, made a name, you were already loved. Adam was formed from the dust of the ground, and God breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and Adam became a living being. God's own breath filling human lungs, the breath of the eternal giving life to the finite, the breath of the holy filling what was made from dirt and making it sacred. And then Eve. God said, "It is not good for the man to be alone." So he caused Adam to fall into a deep sleep, and from his side, from his very body, God formed woman, not as an afterthought, not as a helper in the sense of someone less than, but as a partner, a companion, someone equal in worth and dignity and belovedness. When Adam woke and saw her, his heart must have leapt. "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh," he said. "Finally, someone like me, someone to walk with, someone to be known by." God blessed them, not after they proved themselves, not after they accomplished great things. He blessed them simply because they were His. And He said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number, fill the earth and subdue it." But notice, beloved, He blessed them first. The blessing came before the command. The love came before the labor. The belovedness came before the doing. You are not loved because you are useful to God. You are loved because you are His, and that will never change. Not when you succeed, not when you fail, not when you are strong or when you are weak. You are His image bearer, and that is enough. Adam and Eve were not made just to work. The work was given to them as a gift. They were made for something even deeper. They were made for communion, for relationship, for walking with God in the cool of the day, hearing His voice, knowing His presence, being fully known by Him without fear or shame. And beloved, this is still your deepest design. Beneath all the noise, beneath all the striving and performing and trying to prove your worth, your soul was made to rest in relationship with the one who formed you. You were made to be loved, to be seen, to be held, to walk with God, not as a servant cowering in fear, but as a child held close to the Father's heart. So if you are weary tonight, if you feel you have not done enough or been enough, if you are afraid you have disappointed God or fallen too far behind, stop, breathe, and let this truth settle over you like a warm blanket on a cold night. You have worth. Before you do a single thing, you are seen not for what you produce, but for who you are. You are known not because you have proven yourself, but because God chose to know you. And you are loved deeply and completely, not because you earned it, but because love is simply who God is. He is not disappointed in you, beloved. He is not standing far off, arms crossed, waiting for you to get it together. He is near. He is so near. And He is whispering the same thing over you tonight that He whispered over Adam and Eve in the garden. You are mine. You are good. You are enough. By the seventh day, God had finished the work He had been doing. The stars were hung. The seas were full. The earth was teeming with life. Every detail had been attended to. Every piece had been placed with care. And so, on the seventh day, God rested. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it He rested from all the work of creating that He had done. Rest. God Himself rested, not because He was tired, He who does not grow weary or faint, not because He had run out of strength or run out of ideas, but because rest is sacred, rest is good, rest is woven into the very fabric of how life is meant to be lived. God did not create a world where we must always be producing, always be proving, always be moving forward without pause. He made a world that breathed, a world that knows when to work and when to stop, a world that trusts there is a time to build and a time to simply be. And then, in the east, in a place called Eden, God planted a garden, not a factory, not a testing ground, not a place where Adam would have to prove his worth or earn his keep, a garden, a place of beauty, a place of abundance, a place where everything he needed was already provided. The Lord God made all kinds of trees grow out of the ground, trees that were pleasing to the eye and good for food. In the middle of the garden were the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. A river watering the garden flowed from Eden. Can you picture it? Beloved trees with branches heavy with fruit, flowers in colors you and I have never seen, the sound of water flowing cool and clear through the garden, birds singing their morning songs, the scent of earth and growth and life all around, and in the center of it all, two trees, the tree of life offering abundance that would never end, and the tree of knowledge, a boundary given in love, a reminder that some things are held in God's hands alone. God placed Adam in the garden to work it and take care of it. Yes, there was work, but this was not the kind of work that drains the soul. This was not labor done out of fear or obligation. It was partnership. It was purpose given in love, not demanded in desperation. Adam was invited to tend something beautiful, to be a part of what God was doing, to co-create with the Creator himself. And then God said something that should make us all lean in close. It is not good for the man to be alone. It is not good. Even in paradise, even in the presence of God himself, even surrounded by beauty and provision and purpose, it was not good for Adam to be alone. Because we were not made for isolation, beloved. We were made for connection, for relationship, for being seen and known and loved by another. So God caused Adam to fall into a deep sleep, and while he slept, God took one of Adam's ribs, and from it formed woman. When Adam woke and saw her for the first time, something in him must have shifted. He had named the animals. He had walked through the garden, but none of it had been quite complete. And now, here she was, bone of his bone, flesh of his flesh, a companion, an equal, someone to share the garden with, someone to walk beside. Adam and his wife were both naked, and they felt no shame. No shame. Let that sink in, beloved. They stood before each other, fully seen, fully known, and they were not afraid. They did not hide. They did not cover themselves or shrink back or wonder if they were too much or not enough. They simply were, and it was beautiful. It was safe. It was exactly as it should be. This is what God intended from the beginning. Not performance, not perfection, but presence, openness, the kind of relationship where you do not have to hide who you are or pretend to be something you are not. The kind of love that sees all of you and does not turn away. Eden was not just a location, dear one. It was a picture, a glimpse of what God has always wanted for his children. A place where you do not have to earn your place. A place where you are not judged by your failures or measured by your successes. A place where you are simply held, simply loved, simply safe. And here is the beautiful truth. Eden is not lost forever. Yes, the garden as it was is gone. Yes, the world is broken now in ways it was not broken then. But the heart of Eden, the presence of God, the rest, he offers the love he pours out that is not lost. It is here. It is available. It is yours even now if you will receive it. God is still inviting you into that place of rest. He is still saying, come, walk with me. Let me carry what you were never meant to carry alone. Let me speak to the parts of you that feel too tired, too broken, too ashamed. Let me love you the way I love them in the beginning, fully, freely, without condition. So tonight, beloved, as you prepare to rest, imagine that garden. Picture the river flowing gentle and constant. Hear the rustle of leaves in the breeze. Feel the warmth of the sun on your face and the coolness of the grass beneath your feet. And know that God is there. He has always been there. He will always be there. He is not asking you to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. He is not demanding you have all the answers or figure everything out before morning comes. He is simply inviting you to put down your burdens, to stop striving, to stop performing, to come and rest in His presence the way Adam and Eve rested in the garden before fear ever entered their hearts. Let your breathing slow now, dear one. Let your muscles soften. Let the tension you have been holding in your body begin to release bit by bit, breath by breath. You do not have to hold yourself together tonight. God is holding you. You do not have to be strong. He is strong enough for both of you. You do not have to have it all figured out. He knows the way forward, even when you cannot see it. The garden is not lost forever, beloved. It lives in every moment you choose to return to Him. It lives in every breath you take in faith, trusting that He is good and He is near. It lives in the promise that one day, one beautiful, glorious, long-awaited day, all things will be made new. The brokenness will be healed. The tears will be wiped away, and you will walk with Him again in the cool of the day, unashamed, unafraid, fully known, and fully loved. Until that day comes, He is with you here, in the mess, in the waiting, in the weariness. He has not abandoned you. He will never abandon you. He is the God who hovers over the deep, the God who speaks light into darkness, the God who breathes life into dust, the God who plants gardens and invites His children to rest. So come now, dear one, lay your head down, close your weary eyes, and let the God who created you, who knows every part of you, who loves you more than you can fathom, let Him hold you now as you sleep. You are loved, you are seen, you are safe, you are His, and that, beloved, is more than enough. Amen. My dear one, we must now walk together into a harder part of the story, not because God wants to shame us, but because He knows we need to see ourselves in it. We need to know that even in our falling, He does not let go. The garden was still beautiful. The trees still bore their fruit. The river still flowed cool and clear. Adam and Eve still walked in the presence of God. But something was about to shift, not because God changed. He never changes, but because a voice was about to enter the garden. A voice that knew how to twist truth just enough to make it feel like wisdom. Now the serpent was more crafty than any of the wild animals the Lord God had made. He said to the woman, "Did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden?" Did God really say, do you hear the subtlety in that question, beloved? The serpent did not march into the garden with commands or threats. He did not force Eve's hand or drag her to the tree. He simply planted a seed, a tiny seed of doubt, a whisper that maybe God was holding something back. Maybe God did not have her best interest at heart. Maybe the boundary He had set was not for her protection, but for His control. And Eve, dear Eve, answered Him. She tried to defend God's word. We may eat fruit from the trees in the garden, but God did say, you must not eat fruit from the tree that is in the middle of the garden, and you must not touch it, or you will die. But the serpent pressed further. You will not certainly die, he said, for God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. You will be like God. That was the heart of the lie, beloved. Not that the fruit was beautiful or desirable, though it was. Not that it would make her wise, though the serpent promised it would. The lie was this, that she was not enough as she was, that God was keeping something good from her, that she needed to reach beyond what he had given in order to truly be complete. And so, she looked at the fruit. She saw that it was good for food and pleasing to the eye, and also desirable for gaining wisdom. And she took some and ate it. She also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate it. Oh, beloved, do you feel the weight of that moment? Not anger, not fury, just sorrow. A deep aching sorrow, because in that moment, something broke that was never meant to be broken. A trust, a closeness, a simple, beautiful dependence on the one who had given them everything. But here is what I want you to hear tonight, my dear one. Eve did not fall because she was evil. Adam did not fall because he was wicked. They fell because they were human. They fell because they were tired of trusting. They fell because the whisper of doubt felt easier than the stillness of faith. They fell because the promise of control felt safer than the vulnerability of surrender. And beloved, we fall for the same reasons. Not because we are monsters, not because we are terrible people, but because we are weary, because we are afraid, because the lie whispers that if we just take matters into our own hands, if we just step outside of God's boundary, if we just reach for what he has not given, then maybe finally we will have enough. We will be enough. But the fruit never delivers what it promises, does it? Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they realized they were naked. So they sewed fig leaves together and made coverings for themselves. Their eyes were opened, but they did not see beauty. They did not see wisdom. They saw shame. They saw lack. They saw vulnerability that suddenly felt unbearable. And for the first time in their existence, they felt the need to hide, to cover, to protect themselves from being fully seen. Sin always does this, beloved. It always promises freedom and delivers chains. It always promises life and delivers death. It always promises to make us more and leaves us feeling like less. And the first instinct every single time is to hide, to cover, to run from the very presence that could heal us. Take a breath, dear one, a slow, gentle breath. If you are carrying shame tonight, if you are hiding something, you are afraid, God will see if you have believed the lie that you are too far gone or too broken or too much pause here. Let your heart settle, because what happens next is not what you might expect. Then the man and his wife heard the sound of the Lord God as he was walking in the garden in the cool of the day, and they hid from the Lord God among the trees of the garden. God came walking, not storming, not raging, walking in the cool of the day, the way he always did, the way he always had. Because even though everything had changed for Adam and Eve, God had not changed. He was still the same, still near, still seeking. And he called out, but the Lord God called to the man, "Where are you? Where are you?" Oh, beloved, do you hear the tenderness in that question? God knew exactly where Adam was. He is God. He sees all. He knows all. But he was not asking for information. He was inviting. He was reaching. He was saying, "Come out. Come close. Let me see you. Let me find you." This was not the voice of a judge ready to condemn. This was the voice of a father who had lost his child and was searching, calling out in the growing dark, hoping they would answer, hoping they would come back, hoping they would let themselves be found. And Adam answered, "I heard you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid. I was afraid, I hid." How many times have we said those same words, beloved? How many times have we felt the weight of our own failure and thought, "I cannot let God see me like this. I cannot come to him now. I have to fix myself first. I have to clean up the mess before I dare approach." But God did not wait for them to fix themselves. He came looking. He always comes looking. And when Adam finally spoke, When he finally admitted his fear and his hiding, God did not explode in anger. He asked another question, and he said, "Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree that I commanded you not to eat from? Who told you? Who convinced you that you should be ashamed? Who made you believe that you needed to hide from me? Because, beloved, that shame did not come from God. It never does. Conviction, yes. The gentle correction of a loving father, yes. But crippling, paralyzing shame that makes you run and hide and believe you are beyond reach, that is not from him. Adam did what we so often do. He blamed. The woman you put here with me, she gave me some fruit from the tree, and I ate it. And Eve, when questioned, pointed to the serpent. The serpent deceived me, and I ate. And God, in his infinite patience, listened. He did not interrupt. He did not dismiss their pain or their fear. But he also did not leave them there, because that is not who he is. He is the God who pursues, the God who covers, the God who even in the midst of consequence provides a way forward. The Lord God made garments of skin for Adam and his wife and clothed them. Did you catch that, beloved? They had tried to cover themselves with fig leaves, flimsy, inadequate, falling apart. But God made garments of skin, something that required sacrifice, something that cost. He covered their shame with something they could not provide for themselves. And this, dear one, is the first whisper of the gospel, the first hint that God himself would one day provide the covering we need, that he would pay the cost we could never pay. Yes, there were consequences. The ground would be hard. Childbirth would be painful. Work would be difficult. They would return to dust, and they could no longer stay in the garden as they had been walking in unbroken fellowship, living in untainted innocence. So the Lord God banished him from the Garden of Eden to work the ground from which he had been taken. After he drove the man out, he placed on the east side of the Garden of Eden cherubim and a flaming sword flashing back and forth to guard the way to the tree of life. It sounds harsh, does it not? Banished, driven out. But beloved, even in this, there is mercy, because to stay in the garden, in their fallen state, to eat from the tree of life, and live forever, in brokenness and shame, that would not have been kindness. That would have been cruelty. God sent them out, not to punish them, but to protect them, to give them space to live, to struggle, to learn what it means to trust him outside of paradise. And even as they walked out of the garden, even as the flaming sword barred their way back, God walked with them. He did not abandon them. He did not curse them and leave them to fend for themselves. He stayed. He provided. He continued to speak, to guide, to love. So if you are feeling far from God tonight, beloved, if you are hiding in the trees because you are afraid of what he will say when he finds you hear this, he is still calling. He is still asking, where are you? Not because he does not know, but because he wants you to come out, to be seen, to be found, to let him cover what you cannot cover, to let him heal what you cannot fix, to let him love you, even in your brokenness, even in your mess, even in your shame. You do not have to have it all together before you come to him. You do not have to clean yourself up first. He is not waiting for you to be perfect. He is waiting for you to be honest, to step out from behind the trees, to let him see you. And when you do, you will find that he is not angry. He is not disappointed. He is simply relieved, because his child who was lost is finally letting themselves be found. Adam and Eve left the garden, and life continued. But it was different now, harder, heavier. They had two sons, Cain and Abel. Cain worked the soil. Abel kept flocks, and in time they both brought offerings to the Lord. Abel brought fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but on Cain and his offering he did not look with favor. We do not know all the reasons why, beloved. Perhaps it was the heart behind the offering. Perhaps it was the faith. But Cain noticed, and Cain was angry. So Cain was very angry, and his face was downcast. Do you see it already, dear one? The seed of sin growing in the soil of a broken world. Anger, jealousy, the feeling that he was not enough, that he had been passed over, that someone else had received what he deserved. And instead of bringing that pain to God, instead of asking for help, Cain let it fester. He let it grow. He nursed it in the quiet of his heart until it became something darker, something he could no longer control. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? Why is your face downcast? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it." Oh, beloved, do you hear the warning in that, the gentleness? Even in the warning, God saw what was happening. He saw the anger, he saw the hurt, and he did not condemn Cain. He invited him. He said, "You can still choose. Sin is crouching at your door like a wild animal waiting to pounce, but you do not have to let it in. You can rule over it. You can choose another way." But Cain did not listen. Now Cain said to his brother Abel, "Let's go out to the field." While they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. The first death, the first murder, the first time one human being chose violence against another. And it happened not in a moment of sudden rage, but in the quiet of a field, planned, deliberate. The fruit of jealousy, left unchecked of pain, turned inward until it exploded outward and took the life of someone innocent. And once again, God came seeking. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Where is your brother Abel?" Where is he? God knew. Of course he knew, but he was giving Cain a chance to confess, a chance to be honest, a chance to let himself be found before the weight of his sin crushed him completely. But Cain lied. "I don't know," he said. "Am I my brother's keeper?" And God, with sorrow in his voice, said, "What have you done? Listen, your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. The blood cries out. Beloved, nothing is hidden from God, not our sins, not our pain, not the harm we do to others or the harm done to us. He hears it all, he sees it all, and even when we try to bury it, even when we try to pretend it did not happen, the truth cries out. It always does. Cain was marked, he was sent away. He was afraid he would be killed for what he had done. But even then, even after everything, God protected him. But the Lord said to him, "Not so. Anyone who kills Cain will suffer vengeance 7 times over." Then the Lord put a mark on Cain so that no one who found him would kill him. Grace, beloved, even in judgment, grace. Even when Cain had murdered his own brother, even when he had lied to God's face, even when he showed no remorse, God still protected him. God still gave him a future. God still refused to let the story end in total destruction, and life went on. Cain had children. Those children had children. Cities were built. Music was created. Tools were forged. Humanity spread across the earth, growing, multiplying, building. But the brokenness spread too. Violence increased. Pain deepened. The world that God had called good was becoming something twisted, something far from what he had intended. And yet, beloved, in the midst of all this darkness, there was a thread of light, a thin, steady thread of grace woven through the generations. Adam made love to his wife again, and she gave birth to a son, and named him Seth, saying, "God has granted me another child in place of Abel, since Cain killed him." Another child, another chance, another breath of hope in a world that felt like it was suffocating under the weight of sin. And through Seth, through his line, God would continue his plan, his promise, his pursuit of humanity. Genesis chapter 5 is a long genealogy, beloved. Name after name after name. Adam lived, and he had Seth. Seth lived, and he had Enosh. Enosh lived, and he had Kenan. On and on, generation after generation. And it can feel tedious, can it not? All these names, all these numbers, all these lives we know so little about. But here is what I want you to see. Every single name is written down. Every single life is remembered. Not just the heroes, not just the ones who did great things. Every person who lived, who breathed, who struggled through this broken world, God saw them. God knew them. God remembered them. Altogether, Adam lived a total of 930 years, and then he died. And then he died. That phrase repeats over and over. He lived, and then he died. He lived, and then he died. A reminder that death had entered the world, that the consequence of sin was real, that every human being, no matter how long they lived, would eventually return to dust. But in the midst of all that death, there was one exception. One beautiful, shimmering exception. Enoch walked faithfully with God. Then he was no more because God took him away. Enoch did not die. Enoch walked with God. And one day, God simply took him home, as if to say, death is not the final word. This is not how the story ends. There is more. There is always more. So tonight, beloved, as you rest, I want you to remember this sin is real. Brokenness is real. The pain we carry and the pain we cause are real, but they are not the deepest reality. Beneath the sin, beneath the shame, beneath the hiding, and the fear, and the jealousy, and the violence, beneath it all, there is grace. There is God still pursuing, still calling, still covering, still remembering every single name, every single life, every single moment of sorrow, and every quiet act of faithfulness. You are not forgotten, dear one. You are not invisible. You are not too far gone. Your name is written in the heart of God. Your life is seen. Your struggles are known. And even when you fall, even when you hide, even when you run, He is still there, still calling, still asking, where are you? Not to condemn, but to find you, to hold you, to remind you that His grace is greater than your sin. His love is stronger than your shame, and His faithfulness will outlast every failure you fear you have made. Let that truth settle into your bones tonight, beloved. Let it quiet the voices that say you are too broken too far too much. Let it remind you that the same God who walked in the garden still walks with you now. The same God who clothed Adam and Eve still covers you. The same God who protected Cain still guards your life. The same God who remembered every name in that long genealogy still knows yours. And He will not forget it. He will never forget it. Take a deep breath. Let your body relax. Let the weight of this day, this week, this season fall away, if only for this moment. You are held. You are loved. You are His. And nothing in all creation can separate you from that love. Amen. My dear one, we must walk now into a season of deep sorrow, not because God delights in sorrow, but because sometimes love must grieve before it can heal. Sometimes the Father's heart must break before redemption can begin. The earth had grown old since Eden. Generations had come and gone. Cities had been built. Families had multiplied. But something else had multiplied too. Sin, violence, a darkness that spread like a stain across the fabric of creation, seeping into every corner, every heart, every choice. The Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become on the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil all the time. Every inclination, all the time. Can you feel the weight of that, beloved? Not just occasional sin, not just mistakes made in weakness, but a world so saturated with evil that goodness has become almost impossible to find. A world where violence was the language everyone spoke, where cruelty has become normal, where the image of God in humanity has been twisted beyond recognition, and God's heart broke. The Lord regretted that he had made human beings on the earth, and his heart was deeply troubled. Regretted, troubled. These are not the words of a distant, uncaring deity. These are the words of a father watching his children destroy themselves and each other. These are the words of love, witnessing the wreckage of what was meant to be beautiful. God was not angry in the way we think of anger full of rage and vengeance. He was grieving, deeply, profoundly grieving. So the Lord said, I will wipe from the face of the earth the human race I have created, and with them the animals, the birds, and the creatures that move along the ground, for I regret that I have made them. It sounds harsh, does it not, beloved? It sounds like the end, like destruction for destruction's sake. But sometimes, when something has become so broken that it can no longer sustain life, when the poison has spread so far that healing seems impossible, love must make the hardest choice, not to punish, but to stop the suffering, not to destroy for the sake of destruction, but to make space for something new to grow. And in the midst of all that darkness, in the midst of a world drowning in its own evil, there was one man, one single man, whose heart had not been swallowed by the chaos around him. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. Noah, his name means rest, and perhaps that is what he was in God's eyes, a place of rest, a breath of hope in a world that had forgotten how to breathe. Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked faithfully with God. Blameless, not perfect, beloved, not sinless, but faithful, walking with God even when no one else was, choosing righteousness when the entire world around him was choosing destruction. And God saw him, God noticed, God remembered. Here is what I want you to hear tonight, dear one. You do not need a crowd to live rightly. You do not need everyone around you to be walking with God in order for you to walk with him yourself. In a world that feels too loud, too broken, too far from what it should be, you can still choose faithfulness. You can still choose to walk with God, even if you are the only one you know who is walking that path. Noah was not a famous preacher. He was not a powerful king. He was just a man who, in the midst of overwhelming darkness, kept his eyes fixed on the one who is light. And that was enough. That has always been enough. God does not need you to change the whole world, beloved. He just needs you to stay close to him, to keep walking, to keep trusting, even when it feels like you are the only one. Take a slow breath now. Let your shoulders drop. Let the pressure you have been carrying, the weight of thinking you have to fix everything or be strong enough for everyone, let it fall away for just this moment. God is not asking you to carry the world. He is only asking you to walk with him. And in a world as broken as ours, that is the most powerful thing you can do. God spoke to Noah quietly, clearly, the way he always speaks to those who are listening. So God said to Noah, I'm going to put an end to all people, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. I'm surely going to destroy both them and the earth. So make yourself an ark of cypress wood. An ark, a boat, a refuge. God gave Noah detailed instructions, how long it should be, how wide, how tall, where to put the door, how to seal it with pitch so the water could not get in. And Noah listened. He obeyed, not because it made sense, not because he could see the rain clouds gathering, but because God had spoken, and Noah trusted. Noah did everything just as God commanded him. For years, beloved, Noah worked, hammering, sawing, sealing, building this enormous boat on dry land, far from any ocean, with no sign of rain in sight. Can you imagine what people must have said? Can you imagine the mockery, the laughter, the voices telling him he was wasting his time, that he was foolish, that nothing was going to happen? But Noah kept building, because faithfulness is not about knowing the future. It is about trusting the one who holds it. Faithfulness is continuing to obey even when you cannot see the reason yet, even when it looks foolish, even when you are tired and your hands are sore and you wonder if you heard God correctly after all. And then when the ark was finished, God said, "Go into the ark, you and your whole family, because I have found you righteous in this generation. Take with you 7 pairs of every kind of clean animal, a male and its mate, and 1 pair of every kind of unclean animal, a male and its mate, and also 7 pairs of every kind of bird, male and female, to keep their various kinds alive throughout the earth." Noah gathered them, 2 by 2, and 7 by 7 the animals came, walking up that ramp into the ark, into safety, into the place God had prepared. And when everyone was inside, when every creature had found its place, the Lord shut him in. The Lord shut him in. God himself closed the door. Not Noah, God. Because this was not just about Noah's obedience. This was about God's protection. This was about God saying, "I will keep you safe. I will hold the door. I will not let the waters reach you." On that day, all the springs of the great deep burst forth, and the floodgates of the heavens were opened, and rain fell on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. The rain came, not a gentle shower, not a passing storm, but a deluge, water pouring from the sky and bursting up from the depths of the earth. The world that had been so loud with violence suddenly went silent beneath the weight of the waters. And inside the ark, Noah and his family waited, listening to the rain drumming on the roof, feeling the ark rise and sway on the swelling flood, trusting that the God who had told them to build this boat would see them through. 40 days, 40 nights, and then the rain stopped, but the water did not recede quickly. The waters flooded the earth for 150 days, 5 months of floating, 5 months of waiting, 5 months of trusting that God had not forgotten them in the silence. And beloved, sometimes that is where we find ourselves, is it not, inside the ark? Safe, yes, but waiting, floating in the in-between place where the storm has passed, but the ground has not yet appeared, where we know God is with us, but we cannot see the next step, where we are held, but still uncertain. If that is where you are tonight, dear one, hear this. God has not forgotten you. The ark is not a prison, it is a refuge, and the waiting is not punishment, it is protection. God is holding you safe while the waters recede, while the world outside is being made new, while he prepares a place for you to step out into. You are not stuck. You are not abandoned. You are being kept, held, carried through. But God remembered Noah and all the wild animals and the livestock that were with him in the ark, and he sent a wind over the earth, and the waters receded. God remembered. Of course, he remembered. He had never forgotten. But the text tells us this because we need to hear it. We need to know that even when the waiting feels long, even when the silence feels heavy, God remembers. He sees. He knows exactly where you are, and he is already moving to bring you out. The waters went down. The ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. Noah sent out a raven, then a dove. The dove came back the first time because there was nowhere to land. But the second time, she returned with an olive leaf in her beak, a sign, a whisper of hope. The earth was coming back to life. And finally, after more than a year inside the ark, God spoke again. Then God said to Noah, "Come out of the ark, you and your wife, and your sons and their wives. Bring out every kind of living creature that is with you, so they can multiply on the earth, and be fruitful, and increase in number on it. Come out, step into the new world I have made. Step into the fresh start I have given. The storm is over, the waters are gone, and I am still here, waiting for you to walk with me again." Noah stepped out. His feet touched solid ground for the first time in over a year. He breathed in the clean air. He looked around at the empty, washed, silent earth, and the first thing he did was build an altar. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord, and taking some of all the clean animals and clean birds, he sacrificed burnt offerings on it. Gratitude, worship, not relief that it was over, though surely he felt that, but worship because God had been faithful, because God had kept his promise, because they were alive, and the world was new, and there was hope again. The Lord smelled the pleasing aroma, and said in his heart, "Never again will I curse the ground because of humans, even though every inclination of the human heart is evil from childhood. And never again will I destroy all living creatures as I have done. Never again," even though God knew that human hearts were still broken, even though he knew sin had not been washed away by the flood, even though he knew this fresh start would not solve everything, he made a promise, a covenant, a binding, eternal, unbreakable vow. "I establish my covenant with you. Never again will all life be destroyed by the waters of a flood. Never again will there be a flood to destroy the earth." And then, beloved, came the sign, the most beautiful sign. "I have set my rainbow in the clouds, and it will be the sign of the covenant between me and the earth. Whenever I bring clouds over the earth, and the rainbow appears in the clouds, I will remember my covenant between me and you and all living creatures of every kind. Never again will the waters become a flood to destroy all life." The rainbow, every color of light refracted through water, beauty born from storm, a promise painted across the sky for every generation to see. And every time we see it, beloved, we are meant to remember God keeps his promises. God does not abandon his children. God will not let the flood have the final word. So when the storms come in your own life, when the waters rise and you feel like you are barely staying afloat, remember the ark. Remember that God provides a way through. Remember that he shuts the door to keep you safe. Remember that he never forgets you in the waiting. And remember the rainbow, that breathtaking promise stretched across the heavens, reminding you that no matter how dark the clouds, no matter how long, the rain god is faithful. His love endures, and he will see you through to solid ground. Time passed. The earth filled again with people. Families grew, tribes formed, and humanity began to rebuild. But something in the human heart had not changed. The same restlessness that led to the garden's fall, the same pride that had filled the earth with violence before the flood, it was still there. Quieter perhaps, but still there. Now the whole world had one language and a common speech. As people moved eastward, they found a plain in Shinar and settled there. One language, one voice, one people united in purpose. And you might think, that sounds beautiful, beloved. Unity, togetherness, working as one. But listen to what they said. They said to each other, "Come, let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly." They used brick instead of stone and tar for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth. Let us make a name for ourselves." That was the heart of it. Not let us honor God, not let us build something beautiful for his glory, but let us make a name. Let us reach the heavens on our own. Let us prove that we do not need God, that we can climb to him instead of waiting for him to come down to us. And there is something else there too, beloved, of fear. Otherwise, we will be scattered. They were afraid of being apart, afraid of losing control, afraid of the unknown. So they tried to build something that would hold them all together, something tall enough and strong enough that they could never be separated, never be vulnerable, never have to depend on anyone but themselves. But unity without God is not really unity, dear one. It is just collective isolation. It is a tower built on fear instead of love, on pride instead of trust. And towers like that, no matter how high they reach, always crumble eventually. But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower the people were building. The Lord came down. Do you see the irony? They were building a tower to reach the heavens, and God had to come down to even see it. All their striving, all their effort, all their pride, and it was still so small in the eyes of God, still so far from what they imagined it was. The Lord said, if as one people speaking the same language they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language so they will not understand each other. And so God scattered them. He confused their language, not to punish them, beloved, not out of spite or cruelty, but to protect them. Because of humanity united in pride, a humanity convinced it does not need God, is a humanity headed for destruction. Better to be scattered and humble than united and lost. So the Lord scattered them from there, over all the earth, and they stopped building the city. That is why it was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of the whole world. From there the Lord scattered them over the face of the whole earth. Babel, confusion. And yes, it was a consequence. Yes, it interrupted their plans. But beloved, sometimes God's interruptions are His greatest mercies. Sometimes He stops us from building what we thought we wanted, because He knows it will never give us what we truly need. You do not need to build a tower to be seen, dear one. You do not need to make a name for yourself to be known. You do not need to reach the heavens on your own, because God has already come down. He came down in the garden. He came down at Babel. And one day He would come down in the most beautiful, most costly, most loving way of all, taking on flesh and walking among us so that we would never have to climb to Him again. So if you are exhausted tonight from trying to build something that will prove your worth, from striving to make a name, from reaching and grasping and climbing and still feeling like you are not high enough, not good enough, not seen enough, stop, breathe, let the tower fall, let the bricks crumble, let yourself be scattered if that is what it takes, because God can meet you in the scattering just as surely as He met Noah in the ark. He can speak to you in your own language, your own heart, your own quiet place, and remind you that you do not need to build anything to earn His love. You already have it. You always have. Take a deep breath now, beloved. Let your body relax. Let the tension in your shoulders ease. You do not have to hold yourself up tonight. You do not have to keep building. You do not have to prove anything. God sees you. God knows you. And God's love for you does not depend on how high you can climb or how much you can accomplish. It depends only on His faithfulness. And His faithfulness, dear one, never wavers. You are safe. You are loved. You are held. Rest now. Let the God who shut Noah in the ark, who painted the rainbow across the sky, who came down to Babel, not to destroy, but to protect, let Him hold you as you sleep. He is near. He has always been near, and He will never, ever let you go. Amen. Come now, beloved. Let us walk together into a new story. A story that begins not with answers, but with a question. Not with certainty, but with trust. Not with a map laid out clearly, but with a single step taken in the dark, following a voice that speaks so gently you might miss it if you are not listening. His name was Abram. He lived in a place called Ur of the Chaldeans, a city of noise and commerce and many gods. He had a wife named Sarai, and a family, and a life that was settled, predictable, known. He was 75 years old, an age when most people are looking for rest, not for new beginnings. An age when the idea of starting over feels impossible, when the thought of leaving everything behind seems like foolishness. And then God spoke, quietly, firmly, with a tenderness that could break your heart and fill it all at once. The Lord had said to Abram, "Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you." Go, leave, walk away from everything you know. Your country, the soil you were born on, the streets you have walked your whole life. Your people, the voices you recognize, the faces that know your name. Your father's household, the place where you belong, where you are understood, where you fit. Leave it all and go to the land I will show you. Not the land I have shown you, not the land you can see from here. The land I will show you, somewhere out there, somewhere you cannot see yet, somewhere you will only find if you start walking. And beloved, do you hear what God is asking? He is not asking Abram to understand. He is not asking him to have it all figured out before he takes the first step. He is simply asking him to trust, to believe that the voice calling him forward is good, is true, is worth following, even when the path is unclear. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you. A great nation, a great name, a blessing that would overflow to the entire world. But none of it would come from staying where he was. None of it would happen if he clung to what was comfortable, what was safe, what was known. The blessing was waiting on the other side of obedience, on the other side of letting go. So Abram went as the Lord had told him. He went, just like that. No argument, no demanding to see the full plan, no insisting on guarantees or proof or a detailed itinerary. He simply went. Abraham was 75 years old when he set out from Haran. He took his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, all the possessions they had accumulated, and the people they had acquired in Haran, and they set out for the land of Canaan, and they arrived there. Step by step, day by day, mile by mile, Abram walked, away from the familiar, away from the comfortable, into the unknown, and God went with him, every step, every mile, every moment of uncertainty. When they reached Canaan, the Lord appeared to Abram and said, "To your offspring I will give this land." So he built an altar there to the Lord who had appeared to him. An altar, a place of worship, a place to say thank you, a place to remember that God had been faithful, that he had led them this far, that he would not stop now. Abram did not have all the answers yet. He did not have the nation, or the name, or the countless descendants, but he had the presence of God, and for now, that was enough. Take a slow breath, beloved. Let your chest rise and fall gently, the way Abram's must have, as he stood in that new land, looking around at what God had promised, but could not yet see. If you are in a place of uncertainty tonight, if you have been asked to let go of something you thought you needed, if you are being called forward into something you cannot yet see clearly here, this faith is not about understanding everything before you move. Faith is about taking the first step because you trust the one who is calling. God is not asking you to see the whole path. He is not demanding that you have it all figured out. He is simply whispering the way he whispered to Abram. Come, follow. I will lead you. I will show you. You do not have to know where you are going. You only have to know that I am going with you. And beloved, that is the beautiful, terrifying, freeing truth of faith. It is not certainty. It is trust. It is not sight. It is surrender. It is not a map. It is a relationship with the one who holds the map and says, just walk with me. I will show you the way as you go. So if you are afraid tonight, If you are standing at the edge of something new and you do not know if you can take that first step, remember Abram. Remember that he was 75 and tired and leaving everything behind, and yet he went because God called. And God's call is always worth following, even when the path is dark, even when the destination is unknown, even when your knees are shaken and your heart is unsure. God goes before you, beloved, always, and all he is asking is that you follow. One step, that is all. Just one step, and then another, and then another. And in the walking, in the following, in the trusting, you will find that he was leading you somewhere more beautiful than you could have imagined. Somewhere you never would have found on your own. Somewhere that was waiting for you all along. Years passed. Abram walked through the land God had shown him. He built altars. He called on the name of the Lord. He faced famine and fear and conflict with his nephew Lot. But through it all, God was faithful. God was near. God was keeping his promises, even when Abram could not see them being fulfilled. But there was one thing that weighed heavy on Abram's heart, one ache that would not go away. God had promised him descendants, a great nation, a blessing that would reach the whole world. But Abram and Sarai had no children. The years kept passing, and Sarai's womb remained closed, and Abram wondered how God's promise could possibly come true when he had no son to carry it forward. One night, after a great victory, after rescuing Lot from enemy kings, Abram was afraid. Perhaps the adrenaline had worn off, and the reality of his situation had settled in again. Perhaps he was tired of waiting, tired of hoping, tired of believing in a promise that seemed more impossible with every passing year. And God came to him, not with rebuke, not with frustration, but with comfort, with reassurance, with a tenderness that met Abram exactly where he was. After this, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your very great reward. Do not be afraid. I am your shield. I am your reward. Not what I will give you, not the descendants or the land or the name. Me. I am your reward. My presence, my faithfulness, my love. That is what you need most, Abram. Not the fulfillment of every promise on your timeline, but me. Always me. But Abram was honest. He did not pretend everything was fine. He did not hide his doubt or his pain. He brought it to God the way we all should. But Abram said, Sovereign Lord, what can you give me, since I remain childless? And the one who will inherit my estate is Eliezer of Damascus. And Abram said, You have given me no children, so a servant in my household will be my heir. I have no children. The promise feels empty. The years are slipping away. How can this be real when I am still waiting, still childless, still wondering if I heard you wrong and God did not scold him? God did not pull back in offense. Instead, he drew Abram outside, into the night, under the vast star-scattered sky. Then the word of the Lord came to him. This man will not be your heir, but a son who is your own flesh, and blood will be your heir. He took him outside and said, Look up at the sky and count the stars, if indeed you can count them. Then he said to him, So shall your offspring be. Count the stars. Try, Abram. Try to number them. Try to grasp how many there are, how they stretch from horizon to horizon, filling the darkness with light. That is how many descendants you will have. Not just a son, not just a family, but a nation, a multitude, a people as countless as the stars you see above you now. Abram believed the Lord, and he credited it to him as righteousness. He believed, not because he could see the sun yet, not because Sarai's womb had opened, not because the promise had been fulfilled, but because God had spoken. And Abram chose to trust the words of God over the evidence of his circumstances. And God called that faith righteousness, not perfection, not sinlessness, not having it all together, but trust, simple, beautiful, costly trust. That is what God has always been looking for. Not our strength, but our surrender. Not our understanding, but our willingness to believe Him, even when we cannot see. Years passed again. The promise still had not come, and Sarai, in her own pain and impatience, made a plan. She gave her servant Hagar to Abram, hoping that maybe this was how God intended to fulfill the promise. And Hagar conceived, and a son was born, Ishmael. And for a while, Abram thought perhaps this was it. Perhaps this was the fulfillment. But God had not forgotten. God was not improvising. God's plan had not changed. When Abram was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to him and said, "I am God Almighty. Walk before me faithfully and be blameless. Then I will make my covenant between me and you, and will greatly increase your numbers." 99 years old, almost a century of life, and God was still speaking, still promising, still faithful. Abram fell face down, and God said to him, "As for me, this is my covenant with you. You will be the father of many nations. No longer will you be called Abram. Your name will be Abraham, for I have made you a father of many nations." A new name. Abram, which means exalted father, became Abraham, which means father of many. Not because he had earned it, not because he had proven himself, but because God said so. Because God was making a promise that did not depend on Abraham's perfection or performance. It depended only on God's faithfulness. And Sarai too. God also said to Abraham, "As for Sarai, your wife, you are no longer to call her Sarai. Her name will be Sarah. I will bless her and will surely give you a son by her. I will bless her so that she will be the mother of nations. Kings of peoples will come from her." Sarah, princess, mother of nations. At 90 years old, long past the age of childbearing, God was giving her a new name and a new identity, not because of what she had done, but because of what God was about to do through her. Abraham fell face down. He laughed and said to himself, "Will a son be born to a man 100 years old? Will Sarah bear a child at the age of 90? He laughed, not in mockery, not in disbelief that rejected God, but in wonder, in the kind of laughter that comes when something is so impossible, so beyond what you can imagine, that all you can do is shake your head and smile at the audacity of God's grace. And God, in His kindness, did not rebuke the laughter. He simply said, "Yes, but your wife Sarah will bear you a son, and you will call him Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him as an everlasting covenant for his descendants after him." Isaac, which means laughter, because sometimes God's promises are so extravagant, so far beyond what we thought possible, that all we can do is laugh in wonder and joy. Beloved, take a moment now. Let your breathing slow. Let your mind rest. If you are waiting for a promise tonight, if you have been holding on to something God whispered years ago, but you still cannot see it, if you are tired and tempted to give up, hear this. God has not forgotten. The delay is not denial. The waiting is not wasted. God is still faithful. He is still working. And His timing, though it may test you, is always, always perfect. The covenant God made with Abraham was not based on Abraham's ability to be perfect. It was based on God's character, on His faithfulness, on His love. And the same is true for you. God's promises to you do not depend on your strength or your worthiness or your ability to hold it all together. They depend on Him, and He never fails. And then, in the fullness of time, when everything seemed impossible, when Sarah was 90 and Abraham was 100, when hope had been stretched so thin it was almost transparent, God fulfilled His promise. Now, the Lord was gracious to Sarah, as He had said, and the Lord did for Sarah what He had promised. Sarah became pregnant and bore a son to Abraham in his old age, at the very time God had promised him. At the very time, not early, not late, at the very time God had said, because God is never early and he is never late. He is always right on time. Abraham gave the name Isaac to the son Sarah bore him. When his son Isaac was 8 days old, Abraham circumcised him as God commanded him. Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. Isaac, laughter, the child who was promised when it seemed impossible, the child who was born when Sarah was far too old, the child who carried in his very existence the proof that God can do anything, that nothing is too hard for the Lord, that his promises are yes and amen, no matter how long we have to wait for them. Sarah said, God has brought me laughter, and everyone who hears about this will laugh with me. And she added, who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse children, yet I have borne him a son in his old age. Laughter, not the bitter laughter of disbelief, but the joyful laughter of fulfillment, the laughter that comes when what was impossible becomes real, when what was promised finally rests in your arms, when you realize that God was faithful all along, even when you doubted, even when you laughed in disbelief, even when you tried to make it happen on your own. The child grew, and Abraham loved him with a love that was deep and fierce and tender. Isaac was not just his son. He was the fulfillment of everything God had promised. He was the beginning of the great nation. He was the carrier of the blessing. He was the miracle they had waited for, prayed for, wept for, hoped for through decades of silence. And then God spoke again, and this time the words were so painful, so incomprehensible, so impossible to bear, that Abraham must have felt his heart stop. Sometime later, God tested Abraham. He said to him, Abraham, here I am. He replied. Then God said, take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on a mountain I will show you. Your son, your only son, whom you love, take him and offer him as a sacrifice. Beloved, can you even imagine? Can you feel the weight of those words? This was not just any child. This was Isaac, the promise, the miracle, the boy who carried the future of God's covenant in his very existence. And God was asking Abraham to give him up, to raise the knife, to trust God, even when it made absolutely no sense, even when it seemed to contradict everything God had promised, even when it felt like his heart was being torn from his chest. Early the next morning, Abraham got up and loaded his donkey. He took with him 2 of his servants and his son Isaac. When he had cut enough wood for the burnt offering, he set out for the place God had told him about. Early the next morning, he did not delay, he did not argue, he did not demand an explanation. He simply obeyed, even though his heart was breaking, even though he did not understand, even though every fiber of his being must have been screaming that this was wrong, that this could not be what God wanted. For 3 days they walked, 3 days of silence, 3 days of carrying the wood, 3 days of looking at Isaac and wondering how this could possibly end in anything but devastation. On the 3rd day, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. He said to his servants, stay here with the donkey while I and the boy go over there. We will worship, and then we will come back to you. We will come back, both of us. Even in the midst of obedience, even in the midst of this unbearable command, Abraham still believed, still trusted, still held on to the promise that God had given him, even when he could not see how it would be fulfilled. Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and placed it on his son Isaac, and he himself carried the fire and the knife. As the 2 of them went on together, Isaac spoke up and said to his father, Abraham, father. Yes, my son, Abraham replied. The fire and wood are here. Isaac said, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering? Where is the lamb? Oh, the innocence in that question. the trust, the unknowing. And Abraham, with a voice that must have trembled, answered. Abraham answered, God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son. And the two of them went on together. God will provide, even when I cannot see it, even when it looks impossible, even when my heart is breaking and I do not understand. God will provide. He always has. He always will. They reached the place. Abraham built the altar. He arranged the wood. And then, with hands that must have shook with tears, that must have blurred his vision, he bound his son. He laid him on the altar. He reached for the knife. But the angel of the Lord called out to him from heaven, Abraham, Abraham. Here I am, he replied. Do not lay a hand on the boy, he said. Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son. Stop. It is enough. I see your faith. I see your trust. I see that you were willing to give me even the thing you loved most, the thing I promised you, the thing that means everything, and that is enough. You do not have to go through with it. I was only asking if you would trust me, and you said yes, and that is all I needed. Abraham looked up, and there in the thicket, he saw a ram caught by its horns. He went over and took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering instead of his son. So Abraham called that place, the Lord will provide. And to this day, it is said, on the mountain of the Lord, it will be provided. A ram, provided by God, caught in the thicket, ready, waiting, the sacrifice that Abraham did not have to make because God provided it instead. And beloved, this is the heart of the gospel, whispered here on this mountain, centuries before the cross. God asking Abraham to give what was most precious, and then God providing the sacrifice himself. God making a way when there seemed to be no way. God sparing the son of Abraham, even as one day he would not spare his own son, the true lamb, the final sacrifice, the provision for all of us who could never provide for ourselves. Abraham passed the test, not because he was perfect, not because he never doubted, but because when it mattered most, he trusted. He believed that God was good, even when he could not see how. He believed that God would provide, even when he could not imagine the way forward. He believed that God's promises were true, even when they seemed to contradict each other. And God, in his faithfulness, said, I swear by myself, declares the Lord, that because you have done this, and have not withheld your son, your only son, I will surely bless you, and make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky, and as the sand on the seashore. Your descendants will take possession of the cities of their enemies, and through your offspring, all nations on earth will be blessed, because you have obeyed me. The promise renewed, the covenant confirmed, not because Abraham earned it, but because God is faithful, always faithful. Years passed. Sarah died, and Abraham mourned her. He bought a field and a cave, and buried her there in the land God had promised. Isaac grew into a man, and Abraham, now old and full of years, made sure that Isaac would have a wife, someone who would continue the line, someone who would carry the promise forward. He sent his servant back to his homeland, and the servant came back with Rebekah, and Isaac loved her, and the promise continued. Abraham breathed his last, and died at a good old age, an old man, and full of years, and he was gathered to his people. His sons Isaac and Ishmael buried him in the cave of Machpelah near Mamre, in the field of Ephron, son of Zohar, the Hittite, the field Abraham had bought from the Hittites. There Abraham was buried with his wife Sarah. He died at a good old age, full of years, full of the faithfulness of God, full of the knowledge that God had kept every promise, that the impossible had become possible, that the wait had been worth it, that the journey, though long and hard and full of tests, had been walked in the presence of the God who never left him, never forsook him, never stopped being faithful. And beloved, this is the legacy of Abraham. Not perfection, not a life without struggle or doubt or fear, but a life of faith, a life of trusting God even when the path was dark, a life of obedience even when it cost everything, a life of believing that God's promises are true no matter how long it takes, no matter how impossible it seems, no matter how much it hurts to hold on. Take a deep breath now, dear one. Let the story of Abraham settle into your heart like a gentle hand on your shoulder. If you are in a season of waiting, know that God has not forgotten you. If you are being asked to let go of something you love, know that God will provide. If you are walking a path you do not understand, know that God is going before you, and all you have to do is follow. You do not have to see the whole journey. You do not have to understand every step. You only have to trust the one who is leading. And he is good, he is faithful, and he will never, ever let you go. Rest now, beloved. Let your weary heart find peace in the God of Abraham, the God who calls us into the unknown and then walks with us every step of the way. You are loved, you are seen, you are held, and every promise he has made to you, he will keep. Amen. My dear one, we turn now to a story that may feel uncomfortably familiar. A story not of a hero who had it all together, but of a man who spent most of his life running from consequences, running from his brother's anger, running from his own shame, always running, until the night came when God would not let him run anymore. His name was Jacob, and from the very moment he was born, he was grasping, striving, trying to get ahead. He came into the world holding onto his twin brother's heel, as if even in the womb he was trying to overtake him, trying to be first, trying to claim what he thought should be his. The babies jostled each other within her, and she said, "Why is this happening to me?" So she went to inquire of the Lord. The Lord said to her, "2 nations are in your womb, and 2 peoples from within you will be separated. One people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger." 2 nations, 2 destinies, and God had already chosen, not the older as tradition would demand, but the younger, Jacob, the one who would carry the promise forward, not because he deserved it, not because he was better, but because God, in his sovereignty, had decided it would be so. But Jacob did not wait for God's timing. He did not trust God's plan. He wanted to make sure it happened, to control it, to secure it for himself. And so he schemed, he manipulated, he deceived. When Esau came in from the field, one day exhausted and starving, Jacob saw his opportunity. Once when Jacob was cooking some stew, Esau came in from the open country famished. He said to Jacob, "Quick, let me have some of that red stew. I'm famished." Jacob replied, "First sell me your birthright." "Look, I am about to die," Esau said. "What good is the birthright to me?" But Jacob said, "Swear to me first." So he swore an oath to him selling his birthright to Jacob. The birthright, the blessing of the firstborn, the inheritance. Jacob took it not through violence, but through cunning, through taking advantage of his brother's weakness. And Esau, in his hunger and his carelessness, gave it away for a bowl of stew. But that was not enough for Jacob. Years later, when their father Isaac was old and his eyes were dim, when it was time for Isaac to give his blessing, Jacob did something even worse. With his mother, Rebekah's help, he dressed in his brother's clothes, covered his smooth skin with goat skins to feel like Esau's hairy arms, and went to his father, pretending to be the son he was not. Jacob said to his father, "I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Please sit up and eat some of my game so that you may give me your blessing." A lie, a deception, taking what God had already promised him, but taking it through dishonesty rather than waiting for God to give it in his time and his way. And Isaac, trusting the voice, believing the touch, gave Jacob the blessing that was meant for the firstborn. May nations serve you, and peoples bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may the sons of your mother bow down to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and those who bless you be blessed. The blessing was given, but it was given in darkness, in deception, in betrayal. And when Esau came in from the field and discovered what had happened, his heart broke with a grief so deep it shook the very walls. When Esau heard his father's words, he burst out with a loud and bitter cry and said to his father, "Bless me too, my father." But he said, "Your brother came deceitfully and took your blessing." Esau said, "Isn't he rightly named Jacob? This is the second time he has taken advantage of me. He took my birthright, and now he's taken my blessing." Esau wept, and then his grief turned to rage. Esau held a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing his father had given him. He said to himself, "The days of mourning for my father are near. Then I will kill my brother Jacob." And so Jacob ran, because that is what we do when we take what is not ours to take, when we wound the people we should love, when we try to force God's promises through our own manipulation. We run, we hide, we flee from the consequences, hoping that distance will somehow erase what we have done. Rebekah sent him away back to her homeland, to her brother Laban. "Go at once to my brother Laban in Haran. Stay with him for a while until your brother's fury subsides." A while. She thought it would be a short time, but Jacob would be gone for 20 years. He left everything behind, his home, his family, the blessing he had stolen, and he walked alone into the wilderness, carrying nothing but his guilt and his fear and the weight of what he had done. And beloved, if you have ever felt like Jacob, if you have ever run from something you did, if you have ever carried the shame of a choice you wish you could take back, if you have ever wondered if God could still love you after what you have done, then lean in close now, because what happens next is one of the most beautiful pictures of grace in all of Scripture. Jacob stopped for the night in a place that felt as lonely as his heart. When he reached a certain place, he stopped for the night because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones there, he put it under his head and lay down to sleep. A stone for a pillow, the hard ground for a bed, the darkness for company. He was alone, completely alone, or so he thought. He had a dream in which he saw a stairway resting on the earth, with its top reaching to heaven, and the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. There above it stood the Lord, and he said, "I am the Lord, the God of your father Abraham, and the God of Isaac. I will give you and your descendants the land on which you are lying. Your descendants will be like the dust of the earth, and you will spread out to the west and to the east, to the north and to the south. All peoples on earth will be blessed through you and your offspring. I am with you and will watch over you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you." Oh, beloved, do you see it? Jacob was running away from everything, from his brother's anger, from his father's home, from the mess he had made. But he was not running away from God, because God was right there with him, in the darkness, in the loneliness, in the guilt and the fear. God was there, and God spoke not words of condemnation, but words of promise. "I am with you. I will watch over you. I will not leave you, not because you deserve it, Jacob, not because you earned it, but because I chose you, because my promises do not depend on your perfection. They depend on my faithfulness, and I am faithful even when you are not." When Jacob awoke from his sleep, he thought, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I was not aware of it." He was afraid and said, How awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of God. This is the gate of heaven. Surely the Lord is in this place, and I was not aware of it. How many times, beloved, has that been true for us? How many times have we thought we were alone, only to discover that God was there all along? How many times have we run thinking we were leaving God behind, only to find that He was running with us beside us, never letting us go? Jacob took the stone he had used as a pillow and set it up as a pillar. He poured oil on it and called the place Bethel, which means house of God. And he made a vow, if God will be with me and will watch over me on this journey I am taking, and will give me food to eat and clothes to wear, so that I return safely to my father's household, then the Lord will be my God, if God will be with me. But beloved, God had already promised He would be. That is grace. That is the heart of God. He makes promises to us before we even know how to ask for them. He commits to us before we commit to Him. He is with us even when we do not yet know how to be with Him. Take a slow breath now, dear one. If you are running tonight, if you are carrying guilt or shame or regret, if you feel like you have gone too far or done too much, remember Jacob. Remember that God met him in the wilderness, that God spoke to him in the darkness, that God promised to be with him even though Jacob had lied and cheated and stolen. God did not wait for Jacob to clean up his act. He met him right where he was, and He meets you right where you are too. You are not too far gone. You are not beyond reach. God is with you even now, even here, even in this. 20 years passed. Jacob served Laban, his uncle, working for him, building a family, accumulating flocks. He married Leah and Rachel. He had children. He grew wealthy. But he was still running, still far from home, still avoiding the brother he had wronged. And then God spoke again. Then the Lord said to Jacob, "Go back to the land of your fathers and to your relatives, and I will be with you." Go back. Face what you have been running from. Return to the place where it all went wrong, and I will be with you. So Jacob gathered his family and his possessions and set out for home. But as he drew near to the land where Esau lived, the fear came flooding back. What if Esau still hated him? What if his brother still wanted revenge? What if, after all these years, the wound had not healed, but only festered? Jacob sent messengers ahead to Esau, hoping to appease him with gifts. And when the messengers returned, they said, "We went to your brother Esau, and now he is coming to meet you, and 400 men are with him." 400 men. Jacob's heart must have seized with terror. This was it. Esau was coming to kill him, to take back what Jacob had stolen, to finally settle the score. In great fear and distress, Jacob divided the people who were with him into two groups, and the flocks and herds and camels as well. He thought, if Esau comes and attacks one group, the group that is left may escape. Even now, beloved, Jacob was scheming. Even now, he was trying to control the outcome. But this time, he also prayed. For the first time in the story, we hear Jacob truly pray. Then Jacob prayed, "O God of my father Abraham, God of my father Isaac, Lord, you who said to me, 'Go back to your country and your relatives, and I will make you prosper.' I am unworthy of all the kindness and faithfulness you have shown your servant. I had only my staff when I crossed this Jordan, but now I have become two camps. Save me, I pray, from the hand of my brother Esau, for I am afraid he will come and attack me, and also the mothers with their children. But you have said, 'I will surely make you prosper, and will make your descendants like the sand of the sea, which cannot be counted.' I am unworthy, I am afraid, but you promised." This is the prayer of a man who is finally beginning to understand that he cannot save himself, that all his scheming, all his manipulation, all his striving will not be enough. that he needs God desperately. Jacob sent his family across the stream. He sent gifts ahead to Esau, wave after wave of livestock, hoping to soften his brother's heart. And then, when everyone was gone, when he was finally alone, something happened that would change him forever. So Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him till daybreak. A man? Or was it? The text is mysterious here, intentionally so. Jacob wrestled all night with someone. Some say it was an angel. Some say it was a manifestation of God himself. But whoever it was, Jacob held on. He fought, he struggled, and he would not let go. When the man saw that he could not overpower him, he touched the socket of Jacob's hip so that his hip was wrenched as he wrestled with the man. One touch. That is all it took. One touch, and Jacob's strength was gone. His hip was dislocated. The pain must have been excruciating, but still, he held on. Then the man said, "Let me go, for it is daybreak." But Jacob replied, "I will not let you go unless you bless me. I will not let you go unless you bless me." Do you hear the desperation in that the need Jacob had spent his whole life grasping for blessing, trying to secure it through his own effort, through deception, through manipulation, and now broken and weak and clinging to this mysterious stranger in the dark, he finally understood. The blessing could not be taken, it could only be given, and he was willing to hold on even in his pain until it was given. The man asked him, "What is your name?" "Jacob," he answered. "What is your name?" Not because the man did not know, but because Jacob needed to say it, to own it. Jacob, the deceiver, the supplanter, the one who had spent his life trying to be someone he was not. He had to name himself to face who he really was before he could become who God intended. Then the man said, "Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with humans and have overcome." Israel, it means he who struggles with God, or God contends. A new name, a new identity, not because Jacob had finally gotten it right, but because God in his grace was giving him something he could never earn. A new beginning, a new future, a blessing that was not stolen but freely given. Jacob said, "Please tell me your name." But he replied, "Why do you ask my name?" Then he blessed him there. The blessing Jacob had been chasing his whole life, the blessing he had lied for stolen, for run for it, was finally his. Not because he deserved it, but because he had finally stopped trying to take it and started asking for it, because he had finally admitted he was weak, because he had finally let God be God. So Jacob called the place Peniel, saying, "It is because I saw God face to face, and yet my life was spared." The sun rose above him as he passed Peniel, and he was limping because of his hip. He was limping. For the rest of his life, Jacob would walk with a limp, a reminder of the night he wrestled with God, a reminder that true blessing comes through surrender, not through strength, that God's power is made perfect in our weakness, that sometimes we have to be broken before we can be whole. And beloved, if you are limping tonight, if you are carrying wounds from your own wrestling with God, if you feel weak and broken and not at all like the person you thought you would be, hear this: your limp is not a sign of failure. It is a sign of encounter. It is proof that you met with God and he did not destroy you, but transformed you. It is evidence that you stopped running and started clinging, and that, dear one, is where true blessing is found. The next day, Jacob saw Esau coming with his 400 men, and he bowed down to the ground 7 times as he approached his brother. But Esau, instead of attacking, ran to meet Jacob. But Esau ran to meet Jacob and embraced him. He threw his arms around his neck and kissed him. And they wept. They wept, not tears of anger, tears of reunion, tears of forgiveness, tears of grace poured out after 20 years of separation. God had gone before Jacob and softened his brother's heart. The reconciliation Jacob feared had become a gift he never expected. Take a deep breath, beloved. Let the image of Jacob's limp settle into your heart. Let it remind you that God does not ask you to be strong. He asks you to be honest, to wrestle, to cling, to admit you need him. And when you do, when you finally stop trying to earn what can only be received, he will bless you. He will rename you. He will give you a new identity, not based on what you have done, but on who he is. You do not have to be perfect. You just have to hold on. Jacob, now called Israel, continued his journey. His family grew, 12 sons born from 4 different women, each one with their own personality, their own struggles, their own place in the unfolding story of God's people. There was Reuben, the firstborn, impulsive and unstable. Simeon and Levi, fierce and violent. Judah, who would one day carry the line of kings. Issachar and Zebulun. Dan and Naphtali. Gad and Asher. And Joseph and Benjamin, the sons of Rachel, the wife Jacob loved most. It was not a perfect family, beloved, not even close. There was jealousy, favoritism, conflict, betrayal. Rachel and Leah competed for Jacob's affection. The sons competed for their father's blessing. The Simeon and Levi massacred an entire city in revenge for their sister Dinah's assault. Reuben slept with his father's concubine. Judah went to a prostitute who turned out to be his daughter-in-law in disguise. This was not a family of saints. This was a family of broken, messy, complicated people. And yet, beloved, this was the family God chose. This was the family through whom he would build a nation. This was the family that would carry his promises forward. God said to Jacob, "Go up to Bethel and settle there and build an altar there to God, who appeared to you when you were fleeing from your brother Esau. Go back to Bethel. Go back to the place where I met you in your running. Go back to the place where I spoke promise over you when you had nothing but a stone for a pillow. Go back and remember. Remember that I was faithful then, and I am faithful now." So Jacob told his household, "Get rid of the foreign gods you have with you, and purify yourselves, and change your clothes. Then come, let us go up to Bethel, where I will build an altar to God, who answered me in the day of my distress, and who has been with me wherever I have gone. Who has been with me wherever I have gone, not because I was good, not because I deserved it, but because he is faithful, because he made a promise, and he keeps his promises." They went to Bethel. Jacob built an altar, and God appeared to him again, and blessed him again, and confirmed the promise again. God said to him, "Your name is Jacob, but you will no longer be called Jacob. Your name will be Israel." So he named him Israel. And God said to him, "I am God Almighty. Be fruitful and increase in number. A nation and a community of nations will come from you, and kings will be among your descendants. The land I gave to Abraham and Isaac, I also give to you, and I will give this land to your descendants after you." The promise continued. Generation after generation, the promise held. Not because the people were perfect, but because God is faithful. Rachel, Jacob's beloved wife, died giving birth to Benjamin, and Jacob buried her on the way to Ephrath, and his heart broke with grief. Isaac, his father, died at the age of 180, and Jacob and Esau buried him together. Brothers reunited even in sorrow, and the family continued, messy, complicated, broken in so many ways, but chosen, loved, held by the God who works through imperfect people, because perfect people do not exist. Beloved, if your family is messy tonight, if your relationships are complicated, if you look around at the people you love and see brokenness and conflict and pain, hear this: God is not surprised. He is not disappointed. He does not work only through perfect families or flawless people. He works through real people. struggling people, limping people, people who wrestle with him in the dark and come away wounded but blessed. The 12 sons of Jacob would become the 12 tribes of Israel. Though would grow into a nation, they would carry the promise forward, not because they had it all together, but because God was with them, because God had chosen them, because God's plan is never dependent on human perfection, only on divine faithfulness. And the same is true for you, dear one. God is not waiting for you to get it all right before he uses you. He is not holding back his blessing until you fix every flaw. He is with you now, in your mess, in your struggle, in your limp, and he is weaving your story, broken as it may be, into the beautiful tapestry of his redemptive plan. You do not have to be Jacob before the wrestling. You can be Jacob after, limping, wounded, renamed, blessed, not because you earned it, but because God, in his relentless grace, gave it anyway. So rest now, beloved. Let your body relax. Let your mind quiet. Let the story of Jacob remind you that you do not have to run anymore, that you can stop striving, that you can wrestle with God, and he will not crush you, but hold you, that you can be weak and still be blessed, that you can be broken and still be chosen. God is with you. He has always been with you, and he will never ever let you go. Amen. Come now, beloved. Come and walk with me into the final movement of Genesis, into a story that will take us from the depths of a dark pit to the heights of a palace, from betrayal to forgiveness, from tears to reconciliation. This is the story of Joseph the dreamer, the beloved son, the one who would learn that even when everything looks lost, God is still weaving something beautiful. Joseph was the 11th son of Jacob, but he was the firstborn of Rachel, the wife Jacob loved most. And perhaps because of that, perhaps because Rachel had waited so long for a child, perhaps because Joseph reminded Jacob of the love he held most dear, Jacob favored this boy above all his other sons. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons, because he had been born to him in his old age, and he made an ornate robe for him. An ornate robe. Some translations call it a coat of many colors, a beautiful garment, richly decorated, the kind of thing that set Joseph apart, that made him special, that announced to everyone that he was his father's favorite. And oh, beloved, how dangerous favoritism can be, how it can plant seeds of bitterness in the hearts of those who feel unseen, unloved, passed over. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them, they hated him and could not speak a kind word to him. They hated him, not just disliked, not just resented, hated. The kind of hatred that grows in the shadows of a family, where love is not shared equally, where one child is lifted up and the others are left to wonder why they are not enough. And then Joseph had dreams, dreams that made things even worse. Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him all the more. He said to them, "Listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves of grain out in the field, when suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright, while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it." His brothers said to him, "Do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us?" And they hated him all the more because of his dream and what he had said. Another dream came. This time, the sun and moon and 11 stars were bowing down to him. Even Jacob rebuked him for that one, though the text tells us that Jacob kept the matter in mind, wondering what it could mean. But the brothers had heard enough. The favoritism was one thing, the dreams were another, and their hatred, left to simmer and grow, was becoming something dangerous, something violent. One day, Jacob sent Joseph to check on his brothers who were tending the flocks far from home, and when they saw him coming in the distance, wearing that hated robe, they saw their chance. "Here comes that dreamer," They said to each other, "Come now, let's kill him and throw him into one of these cisterns and say that a ferocious animal devoured him. Then we'll see what comes of his dreams." Kill him, their own brother, the son of their father, the boy who had done nothing to them except be loved more than they were. But hatred beloved does not need much fuel to become a fire, and jealousy left unchecked can lead even family members to unspeakable cruelty. Reuben, the oldest, tried to save him. "Let's not take his life," he said. "Don't shed any blood. Throw him into this cistern here in the wilderness, but don't lay a hand on him." Reuben planned to come back later and rescue Joseph to return him to their father, but things did not go as he hoped. So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, the ornate robe he was wearing, and they took him and threw him into the cistern. The cistern was empty. There was no water in it. An empty cistern, a deep dark pit in the ground. Joseph must have cried out, must have begged them to let him out, must have looked up at the circle of sky above him and wondered how his own brothers could do this to him. The silence of that pit, beloved, the darkness, the cold stone walls, the sudden terrible realization that the people you trusted most in the world had turned against you. If you have ever felt thrown into a pit by people you love, if you have ever been betrayed by those who should have protected you, if you have ever found yourself in a dark place wondering how you got there, and if anyone will ever come to pull you out, then you know something of what Joseph felt in that moment. But the story was not over. As they sat down to eat their meal, they looked up and saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead. Their camels were loaded with spices, balm, and myrrh, and they were on their way to take them down to Egypt. And Judah had an idea. "What will we gain if we kill our brother and cover up his blood? Come, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay our hands on him. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh and blood." So they pulled Joseph up out of the cistern and sold him for 20 shekels of silver. They sold their brother, traded him like merchandise, watched him being dragged away in chains, crying out to them, pleading with them, and they turned their backs and let him go. Then they took Joseph's robe, slaughtered a goat, and dipped the robe in the blood. They brought it back to their father. "We found this. Examine it to see whether it is your son's robe." And Jacob recognized it. "It is my son's robe. Some ferocious animal has devoured him. Joseph has surely been torn to pieces." Then Jacob tore his clothes, put on sackcloth, and mourned for his son many days. All his sons and daughters came to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. "No," he said, "I will continue to mourn until I join my son in the grave." So his father wept for him. Jacob wept for the son he thought was dead. The brothers carried the weight of their lie, and Joseph, far from home, was being taken to a land he did not know, sold into slavery, stripped of everything he had ever known. Take a slow breath, beloved. Feel the sorrow of this moment, the betrayal, the loss, the overwhelming sense that everything has fallen apart and there is no way to put it back together. If that is where you are tonight, if life has taken you somewhere you never wanted to go, if you feel like you have been thrown into a pit or sold into circumstances beyond your control, do not lose heart, because this is not the end of Joseph's story, and it is not the end of yours either. God was with Joseph in that pit. God was with Joseph on that long walk to Egypt, and God is with you now, even when you cannot see him, even when you cannot feel him, even when it seems like he has forgotten you. He has not. He never does. When Joseph arrived in Egypt as a slave, he was bought by Potiphar, an Egyptian official, the captain of the guard for Pharaoh. And in Potiphar's house, something remarkable happened. The Lord was with Joseph so that he prospered, and he lived in the house of his Egyptian master. When his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord gave him success in everything he did, Joseph found favor in his eyes and became his attendant. Potiphar put him in charge of his household, and he entrusted to his care everything he owned. The Lord was with Joseph, even there, even in slavery, even in a foreign land where everything was unfamiliar and frightening. God had not abandoned him. God was working quietly, steadily, in ways Joseph could not yet see. Joseph served faithfully. He worked with integrity. He did not grow bitter or angry or resentful, even though he had every reason to be. He simply did what was in front of him to do, trusting that somehow, in some way, God was still with him. But then another trial came. Potiphar's wife noticed Joseph. Now Joseph was well built and handsome, and after a while, his master's wife took notice of Joseph and said, "Come to bed with me." Day after day, she pursued him. Day after day, Joseph refused. "How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?" he said. But she would not relent. And one day, when no one else was in the house, she grabbed him by his cloak and demanded again. Joseph ran, leaving his cloak in her hand, choosing righteousness over comfort, obedience over ease. And she, in her fury and her wounded pride, lied. She accused Joseph of the very thing he had refused to do. And when Potiphar heard her story, he was furious. Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. Prison. After everything. After being thrown into a pit by his brothers. After being sold as a slave. After serving faithfully, doing everything right, refusing to sin, even when it cost him everything. Now prison. A darker pit. A deeper betrayal. A harder season. Beloved, do you see? Sometimes doing the right thing does not lead to immediate blessing. Sometimes faithfulness leads to suffering. Sometimes obedience takes us into darker places before it brings us into light. And that can be so hard to understand, so hard to bear. But listen to what the text says. But while Joseph was there in the prison, the Lord was with him. He showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. So the warden put Joseph in charge of all those held in the prison, and he was made responsible for all that was done there. The warden paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care, because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did. The Lord was with him in the pit, in Potiphar's house, in the prison, always with him. Joseph did not know why those things were happening. He did not know how long he would be there. He did not know if he would ever see his family again, or if his dreams would ever come true. But he kept trusting, he kept serving, he kept believing that God was still good, still faithful, still working, even when everything looked hopeless. Years passed, 2 years in the prison, and during that time, Joseph interpreted dreams for 2 of Pharaoh's officials who were imprisoned with him. One dream meant restoration, the other meant death, and everything Joseph said came true. He asked the one who was restored to remember him to mention him to Pharaoh, but the man forgot. 2 more years passed, 2 more years of waiting in the darkness, wondering if anyone would ever remember him, if anyone would ever set him free. And then one night, Pharaoh had a dream, 2 dreams actually, dreams that troubled him so deeply he could not sleep. He called for all the magicians and wise men of Egypt, but none of them could interpret the dreams. And finally, the cupbearer remembered. "Today, I am reminded of my shortcomings," he said, and he told Pharaoh about Joseph. So Pharaoh sent for Joseph, and he was quickly brought from the dungeon. When he had shaved and changed his clothes, he came before Pharaoh. From the dungeon to the palace, in a single morning. After 13 years of suffering, of waiting, of trusting in the dark, suddenly the door opened, and Joseph was brought before the most powerful man in the world. Pharaoh told Joseph his dreams: 7 fat cows, followed by 7 gaunt cows, 7 healthy heads of grain, followed by 7 thin ones. And Joseph, filled with the Spirit of God, interpreted. God has revealed to Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good heads of grain are 7 years. It is one and the same dream. The 7 lean ugly cows that came up afterward are 7 years, and so are the 7 worthless heads of grain scorched by the east wind. They are 7 years of famine, 7 years of abundance, 7 years of famine. And Joseph gave Pharaoh a plan: appoint someone wise to oversee the land during the years of plenty, storing up grain, so that when the famine comes, Egypt will not perish. The plan seemed good to Pharaoh and to all his officials. So Pharaoh asked them, "Can we find anyone like this man, one in whom is the Spirit of God?" Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Since God has made all this known to you, there is no one so discerning and wise as you. You shall be in charge of my palace, and all my people are to submit to your orders. Only with respect to the throne will I be greater than you." In a single day, Joseph went from prisoner to second in command of all Egypt, from the pit to the palace, from forgotten to exalted, not because he schemed or manipulated or forced it to happen, but because God, in his perfect timing, lifted him up. Joseph was 30 years old when he entered the service of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. 30 years old. 13 years had passed since his brothers threw him into the pit. 13 long, painful, confusing years. But God had not wasted a single one. Every trial had prepared him. Every hardship had shaped him. Every moment of waiting had been building toward this. Beloved, if you are in a season of waiting tonight, if you are in a prison of circumstances you did not choose, if you feel forgotten and overlooked and wondering if God even sees you, hear this. He sees, he knows, and he is working, not on your timeline, not in the way you expected, but he is working. And when the time is right, when you are ready, when everything has been prepared, he will lift you up. He will open the door. He will bring you out of the dungeon and into the purpose he has been preparing you for all along. Do not give up, dear one. Do not grow bitter. Do not lose hope. The Lord is with you, just as he was with Joseph, and he will not leave you in the pit forever. The 7 years of abundance came just as Joseph had said, and Joseph stored up grain in such quantities that it was like the sand of the sea beyond measure. And then the 7 years of famine began. The land grew dry, the crops failed, and people from all over the region came to Egypt to buy grain, because only Egypt had prepared. And among those who came were 10 men from Canaan, 10 brothers who had once thrown their youngest brother into a pit and sold him into slavery. They came to buy grain, bowing low before the Egyptian official in charge of distribution, not knowing that the powerful man they were bowing to was the brother they had betrayed. Although Joseph recognized his brothers, they did not recognize him. Then he remembered his dreams about them and said to them, "You are spies. You have come to see where our land is unprotected." Joseph tested them, not out of cruelty, but perhaps to see if they had changed, to see if the men who had once been capable of such betrayal had learned compassion, had grown in character, had softened in the years since they sold him. He kept Simeon as a hostage and sent the others back with grain, instructing them to return with Benjamin, the youngest brother, the only other son of Rachel, the one Joseph had not seen since he was a child. And the brothers went home heavy-hearted, troubled, beginning to realize that perhaps what they had done to Joseph all those years ago was coming back to them. When the famine grew worse, they had to return. They brought Benjamin with them, despite Jacob's protest, despite his fear of losing another son. And when Joseph saw Benjamin, his heart nearly broke. deeply moved at the sight of his brother Joseph, hurried out and looked for a place to weep. He went into his private room and wept there. He wept after all those years, after all the pain and the loneliness and the betrayal. He wept because his family was here standing before him, and they did not even know who he was. Joseph tested them one more time. He hid his silver cup in Benjamin's sack, then accused him of stealing it. The punishment for theft was slavery, and Joseph watched to see what his brothers would do. Would they abandon Benjamin the way they had abandoned him? Would they save themselves and let another brother be taken? But Judah stepped forward, the same Judah who had suggested selling Joseph years ago, and he spoke with a broken, humble heart. Please let your servant remain here as my Lord's slave in place of the boy, and let the boy return with his brothers. How can I go back to my father if the boy is not with me? No, do not let me see the misery that would come on my father. They had changed. They were willing to sacrifice themselves. They were unwilling to break their father's heart again. And Joseph could not hold back any longer. Then Joseph could no longer control himself before all his attendants, and he cried out, "Have everyone leave my presence." So there was no one with Joseph when he made himself known to his brothers, and he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard him, and Pharaoh's household heard about it. He wept, not quietly, loudly. The grief and the joy and the overwhelming flood of emotion that had been building for 22 years came pouring out, and through his tears, he said the words that would change everything. Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still living?" But his brothers were not able to answer him because they were terrified at his presence. They were terrified. Of course they were. This was the brother they had betrayed, the brother they had sold, and now he had all the power in the world. He could destroy them with a word. He could take revenge for everything they had done, and they knew they deserved it. But Joseph did not destroy them. Then Joseph said to his brothers, "Come close to me." When they had done so, he said, "I am your brother Joseph, the one you sold into Egypt. And now do not be distressed, and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you. Do not be distressed, do not be angry with yourselves. Oh, beloved, do you hear the grace in that Joseph was not minimizing what they had done? It was wrong, it was cruel, it caused unspeakable pain. But Joseph had learned something in those years of suffering. He had learned that God was bigger than their betrayal, that God could take even the worst thing and weave it into something redemptive. For 2 years now, there has been famine in the land, and for the next 5 years, there will be no plowing and reaping. But God sent me ahead of you to preserve for you a remnant on earth and to save your lives by a great deliverance. So then, it was not you who sent me here, but God. He made me father to Pharaoh, lord of his entire household and ruler of all Egypt. It was not you who sent me, it was God. Not because God caused the brothers to sin, but because God, in his sovereignty, took their sin and used it for good, took their evil intentions and turned them into the salvation of an entire family, an entire nation. The brothers wept, Joseph wept, they embraced, and the reconciliation that seemed impossible was suddenly beautifully real. Joseph sent for his father. "Hurry back to my father and say to him, 'This is what your son Joseph says. God has made me lord of all Egypt. Come down to me, don't delay.'" And Jacob, when he heard the news, could hardly believe it. "I'm convinced my son Joseph is still alive. I will go and see him before I die." The family was reunited. Jacob saw Joseph again, the son he thought was dead. Israel said to Joseph, "Now I am ready to die, since I have seen for myself that you are still alive." They settled in Egypt in the land of Goshen, where they would grow and multiply and eventually become the nation God had promised Abraham. Years later, after Jacob died, the brothers were afraid again, though thought perhaps Joseph had only been kind because their father was alive, and now that Jacob was gone, Joseph would finally take his revenge. But Joseph wept when they said this, and he spoke words that have echoed through the centuries, words that sum up the entire story, words that remind us of the heart of God. Don't be afraid. Am I in the place of God? You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. So then, don't be afraid. I will provide for you and your children. You intended it for evil, but God intended it for good. That is the message of Joseph's story, beloved. That is the message of all of Scripture. That is the hope we cling to when life feels broken and painful and unbearably hard. God can take what was meant to destroy us and use it to save us. He can take the pit and turn it into a palace. He can take the prison and turn it into a promotion. He can take the betrayal and turn it into blessing, not because the evil was good, but because God is so good, so powerful, so redemptive, that he can take even the worst thing and weave it into his beautiful plan. Take a deep breath, beloved. Let the tears of Joseph's reconciliation wash over your own hurts, your own betrayals, your own broken relationships. If you have been thrown into a pit by people you trusted, know that God is still with you. If you have been in prison, literal or metaphorical, know that he has not forgotten you. If you are waiting for vindication, for healing, for restoration, know that his timing is perfect and his purposes are good. Joseph stayed in Egypt along with all his father's family. He lived 110 years and saw the third generation of Ephraim's children. Also the children of Machir, son of Manasseh, were placed at birth on Joseph's knees. He lived long and full. He saw his family flourish. He saw the promise continue. And when it was time for him to die, he spoke one final word of faith. Then Joseph said to his brothers, I am about to die, but God will surely come to your aid and take you up out of this land to the land he promised on oath to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And Joseph made the Israelites swear an oath and said, God will surely come to your aid, and then you must carry my bones up from this place. God will surely come. That was Joseph's final message. Not I saved you, not I was great, but God will come. He will keep his promise. He will not forget you. And when he does, take me with you, because this is not our final home. We are still waiting for the fulfillment of the promise. So Joseph died at the age of 110, and after they embalmed him, he was placed in a coffin in Egypt. The book of Genesis ends not with arrival, but with anticipation, not with completion, but with hope. The family is in Egypt, but they are not meant to stay. The promise has not yet been fully realized, but it will be. God will come. He always does. And beloved, that is where we end tonight, in the quiet hope of a promise not yet fulfilled, but certain to come, in the peaceful trust that God is working even when we cannot see it, in the gentle assurance that what was meant for evil, he can turn to good, that the pit is not the end, that the prison is not forever, that weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. Rest now, dear one. Let the story of Joseph remind you that God is faithful, that he sees you, that he is with you, that he is weaving something beautiful out of your pain, something redemptive out of your sorrow, something glorious out of what feels like nothing but loss. You are loved, you are held, you are not forgotten, and the God who was with Joseph in the pit, in the prison, and in the palace is with you now. In whatever pit or prison or palace you find yourself tonight, he is there. He has always been there, and he will never leave. The story continues, the promise endures, and you, beloved child of God, are part of it all. Amen.